people have been asking if I would do some sort of video rig rundown, almost a little video about the equipment that I use on stage and when I'm on tour. And although I do have a page on my website about equipment, it's a little bit out of date. I will update it, and I'm hoping maybe this video will follow into the update too. So I thought I would run quickly through the guitars and equipment I use and tell you a little bit what I like about them and why I use them. This is a Dave Arcari signature model that National Reso-Phonic launched in 2019. It's based on a Triolean. It's thin gauge steel. It's got a flat headstock to make it easier to change strings and stuff on stage. I use pretty heavy strings, more on the strings later, but trying to change heavy gauge strings on a slotted headstock, as lovely as the slotted headstocks are, it's really difficult. So it's got a flat headstock, it's got Waverley tuners on it. The pickup system is interesting. It has a Highlander system in the bridge and a Lawler Imperial humbucker in the neck position, which lets me use the guitar for both acoustic sounds plugged in and overdriven and electric sounds. There's onboard power, a couple of batteries in the back here, as well as the body and the neck and the setup. The finish is exclusive to Dave Arcari's signature guitar. It's called Ironwood. When National suggested that they develop and launch the Dave Arcari signature model guitar, one of the things I was really keen to do was to try and come up with a setup that I could use if I only had one guitar with me. So I normally use two tunings, open G and open D, but I sometimes use regular tuning as well. Now, resonator guitars tend to like to stay in the same tuning, but this guitar is stable enough and set up well enough that it can change from tuning to tuning, and if push comes to shove, I can use it for regular tuning. It's not brilliant for regular tuning, but it's passable. Acoustically, it sounds like this. Amplifying resonator guitars has always been a bit of a challenge, especially if you want an acoustic sound. This guitar does a fairly good job of it, but it's helped by the quad Cortex because I use impulse responses in the quad Cortex. Plugged in, it sounds like this. I also have the option with the humbucker to use it like an electric guitar. I tend not to do that in this tuning. I tend to stick to open D with this guitar, with a bit of overdrive and the humbucker. Sometimes I'll play this guitar without a slide, for instance when I play Meet Me in the City. The other National guitar that I like to take on the road with me, I tend to use for open G tuning. It's this guitar here. It's a custom guitar built by National for me. I've had a great relationship with National for a long, long time, and they've built me lots of guitars. This one is based on a Delphi with a steel body, but it also has a flat headstock for changing strings quickly, and it has a built-in Highlander and a humbucker pickup in the neck position. Similar blend system to the signature guitar. This guitar sometimes gets played in plugged in acoustic mode. Sometimes it gets played completely acoustic with a microphone in front of it, and a lot of the time it's plugged in with a bit of overdrive. Unplugged, the guitar sounds like this. plugged in acoustic sound like this. And I plugged in overdrive sound. Which sometimes gets even more dirty. Over the years, my go-to guitar for regular tuning has been a National ResoLectric. This is a ResoLectric Junior. It's got a P90 pickup in the neck position. It's getting a bit rusty and old and tired looking, but it's a beautiful guitar. I love the way this guitar sounds. I love the feel of it. I love the way it plays. But it is quite heavy. So sometimes, if I'm playing a very acoustic gig, or we're having to travel and I can't take many instruments, I can't take this guitar. Unplugged, it sounds strange, a little bit like a banjo. I have been known in the studio to put a microphone on here and not plug it in and just put a microphone on the cone. The solid body in the cone does have a sound all of its own. Plugged in, it can sound like this. If I want some other sounds, or maybe want to get a bit slap back. For something maybe a little dirtier. More recently, for the regular tuning guitar stuff, I've been using this, a Fender Acoustasonic player that's made in Mexico, Telecaster. It's a fantastic guitar. I had my eye on one of these for quite a long time before I could actually justify getting hold of one. But we had it modified. I sourced it from Jimmy Egypt in Glasgow. He put in new neck fixings and threads inside so we could take the neck off and on quickly and safely. The guitar is very, very lightweight. I put power pins on so that I can change strings quickly on stage without having to try and prise out bridge pins, and I put locking tuners on. This is a fantastic guitar and I've really grown to love it. It doesn't make much noise by itself, but that can be a benefit because unplugged, I'm not going to make much of a noise in a hotel room and get thrown out for playing guitar in between shows. And plugged in is a pretty good acoustic sound. If I want a heavier sound for a song like Walk the Walk, well, it does that too. I just flick the switch to the magnetic pickup. Occasionally, for acoustic, regular tuning stuff, I take my beloved Collings 0002H, made in Austin, Texas. I've had this guitar for quite a long time. It's a beautiful small-bodied acoustic guitar. It does have a pickup in it, but I tend to only use it where I'm using a microphone. It's maybe a single microphone, kind of very acoustic type show, or for house concerts or very local shows. I don't take this guitar far on the road. I've also been known to take a banjo out onto live gigs. I've only written a few banjo songs, they feature in various albums. When I do take out the banjo, I take this Deering Goodtime banjo. It's a very simple 5-string banjo. It's an old-time banjo. It doesn't have a resonator like one of the big heavy loud things. It's very lightweight. It's very basic. It's an open back. It has a Kavanjo head, which has got like an embedded magnetic pickup. You can see from the back here how simple that setup is. Unplugged in. If I plug it in, I also have a couple of cigar box guitars made for me by my good pal Neil Madden at Dead Bod Guitars down in Hull. He gifted me this 4-string, which is tuned GDGB. And this is a 3-string that Neil made me. Again, Dead Bod Guitars. He's put my logo on it. I made a wee scratch plate for it. It's fantastic. It's got 3 strings and it sounds like this. As well as the Nationals I take out on the road, I do have a few more. I have some in the USA, I have some here in the UK. These guitars are generally not taken out on the road. This one here is a Polychrome tricone. This was one of the first guitars made by Don Young and McGregor Gaines. Don and Max restarted the National Guitar Company in the late 1980s. In San Luis Obispo, making the guitars to the original national Reso-Phonic specs. This one actually started out with a steel body with a grey burst appliance finish on it, and but it developed a rust problem. And when Don and Mac heard about it, they said, send it back to us, and they put on a brass body. So this is one of the only, maybe the only brass-bodied polychrome tricone. Tricone means it's got 3 smaller cones in here rather than the big one on the other guitars. And it's an absolutely beautiful guitar. I love this. I don't take it on the road. Another guitar that tends not to make it out the studio is this custom Delphi vintage steel finish. I actually got this one directly from Don Young at National on a visit to the National Guitar Factory in about 2007 or 8, I think it was. This guitar, again, doesn't really make it outside. wireless system when I'm playing live. I've tried many different wireless systems over the years, but easily the best is the Line 6. Now, I'm not necessarily a big fan of Line 6 equipment, but their guitar systems are by far the best that I've tried, especially for acoustic tone. This is the Line 6 transmitter. The receiver is on my pedal board along with the quad Cortex. I'll show you later. And with it, I use this cable from the Music Cable Company. It's a custom cable. It's got a mini XLR on the transmitter side and a Newtone silent jack on the guitar end. On the odd occasion that I do have to use a full-length normal guitar cable and for some reason I can't use my wireless system, I use this cable. It's a 1/4 inch jack on each end, right angled jack on one end, regular jack on the other. Amazing road ready cable from the Music Cable Company. The bottleneck I use for playing slide is a signature Dave Arcari slide. This is a slightly unusual one in that it's very light coloured green, but these are made by Ian McWee at Diamond Bottlenecks and they're engraved. They're kind of narrow at the bottom with a little notch to stop it spinning round, a little wider at the top. They're very thick, heavy glass. They're available on my website if anybody fancies trying them out, but these are amazing bottlenecks. We also do a special edition red lead crystal one, which again has my signature on it. That takes us on to guitar strings. What strings do I use? I've always favoured pretty heavy strings on the Resonator guitars for playing bottleneck. After many years of working with Newtone strings in Derbyshire in England, we came up with a signature set of strings, and these are now used on all my Resonator instruments. This is a Dave Arcari signature set. The gauges go from 0.016, 0.018, 0.024, 0.036, wound, 0.045 and 0.056. 024 third string is plain steel. It's not got a winding on it. I found I was breaking a lot of G strings, and not because they were too light gauge, but the core, they were wound strings and the core was very light. These have got no core, they are just a solid steel third string. And as well as using my signature strings from Newtone on the National Reso-Phonic guitars, I use Newtone strings on all my other instruments as well. I use their banjo strings, and on the acoustic guitar and also on the Fender Acoustasonic, I use Newtone strings, masterclass acoustic guitar strings. These are fantastic strings. I use 11s for these guitars and they have never let me down. They last well, they sound good, they've got a decent life. I love them. I don't use a capo in a lot of songs, but when I do, I use a G7th Performance 2 capo, which is absolutely amazing. The Performance 2 capo from G7th has got adaptive radius technology, or ART, which means that you get even pressure right across the guitar neck and it doesn't pull the strings out of tune. On stage, I use a foot stomp board. I use it maybe 4 or 5 songs during my set. The foot stomp itself is a Wazinator made in Australia. It's just this metal thing. The black board is separate, but the actual Wazinator itself is this metal thing like an ashtray with a metal tongue sticking out. I did stick it onto this bit of plexiglass board with a silicone back because I found that it was moving about on stage and taping it down was a pain in the neck. So I kind of built this part myself for it to sit on. But so as I say, it's a Wazinator, very compact, very light, goes in my gig bag, and it gets plugged into a DI box on stage using a custom cable from no less than the Music Cable Company. It's 1/4 inch jack either end, just long enough to go into the Wazinator and into the DI box. It's built like a tank. It's going to last, especially under my feet, and it's a nice lime green colour, which means I ain't going to leave it lying about on stage anytime soon. That kind of takes us on to my pedal board. Now, for many years, I had an effects case. I had a Liquid Blues valve overdrive pedal, a tuner, and a huge big power supply. I eventually added a Boss delay pedal, but the whole thing was so big, heavy and cumbersome. It was very, very power hungry. It was very, very heavy. The power supply for the valve overdrive pedal was like a breeze block and took up more space and weight in the flight case than all the rest of the kit put together. So a few years ago, I moved towards a Fractal Systems AX8, which was not only a self-contained multi-effects unit, but it also had amp simulation and cabinet simulation, and I was able to DI into the front of house PA direct from that. But technology moves on, and although the Fractal AX8 is a fantastic piece of kit, it was still heavy compared to some of the new units that were coming out, and also it was a little bit cumbersome to edit your presets on the fly. So I moved towards Neural Systems Quad Cortex. It's an expensive unit, but it's small, it's lightweight, it's easy to program, it's easy to tweak things on the fly at a gig, whereas with a Fractal there was a lot of delving about through menus. The Quad Cortex is a touch screen, it's got fantastic amp simulations, cabinet simulations, all the effects are really good. Not that I use a lot of effects, but the reverbs, the delays, the EQ is really good. And the pièce de résistance is the fact that it can use impulse responses. Without going into too much detail, impulse responses let you virtually, it's like taking an audio sample of an acoustic guitar or an acoustic instrument that you like or that you own, and using that and putting it in the effects chain as an impulse response, and it works with other piezo's to emulate the initial sound. So it's a bit like a sort of, like some kind of weird sampler, but it doesn't really sample a sound, it samples impulses, whatever that means. All I know is that it works a treat and I love it. This is the Quad Cortex. It's small, it's light, it's mounted on a Pedaltrain Metro 16 board. There's a Cioks power adapter underneath to give this power, and it also powers my Line 6 guitar receiver, wireless guitar receiver. That Pedaltrain Metro board with the Quad Cortex power and the Line 6 guitar wireless receiver fits into this little bag. And let's not forget what I use to carry the instruments about. I use Reunion Blues Continental Voyager gig bags. I'm very lucky to have an artist deal, an endorsement deal with Reunion Blues. I use a banjo case, I use an electric case for the solid body National and for the Acoustasonic, and I have small bodied acoustic cases for the National Reso-Phonic metal bodied guitars.
Devil may care, reaching heaven high. The devil cracked his tail, opened up the sky. Come on! Come on! Cupid is waiting, the devil is racing through the sky. And the Cupid is waiting, the devil is flying through the sky. Devil crack his tail, open up the sky, come on! Oh, that's a story, Wangy-head Kitty